Yeah.
Yes.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, Lindsay, go.
Okay. So uncertainty is here. It's with us. This is a new disease. We all have to become more comfortable with it, which is quite hard. I will say the uncertainty piece has my worry hat on. As I'm looking through Facebook Reels, as I'm sort of consuming information, uncertainty is being weaponized against expertise. And I have found that really disappointing, especially over the last week. Science will change. That doesn't mean there's a conspiracy theory, and that the fact that the scientists said something different 2 weeks ago means that they're doing some sort of mind control. So I think this like weaponization of uncertainty, it's got a nasty side to it. So I think we can just educate everyone around being really clear about the fact that even the best information is provisional, but some stuff's straight up wrong. So.
Right.
But I think there's been a related, skepticism about models. It's easy to describe a model as they just made the numbers up, and in some ways that is an accurate description because the numbers aren't observed data; they are modeled data. But that doesn't mean that you can they are often helpful and point us to better decisions. But I saw that today, like this is a stupid model; they just made the numbers up.
Mm-hmm. So we actually got a question that's related to this. Let's tackle this one. What are your recommendations for addressing this information when all of us see it on Facebook? Yeah, Lindsay.
Oh, Lindsay.
So I have 3 Lindsay's laws about this. And I'm forgetting the first, but I'll remember it, I'm sure. So that's where my brain is today. But the second is, the first is, extraordinary claims require extraordinary measures, in the words of the great Carl Sagan, right? So he was a very famous scientist who's no longer with us. But basically, if somebody's coming out with something extraordinary, there better be a boatload of extraordinary evidence backing that up. So number 2 is be like Abraham Lincoln and assemble a team of rivals. Actively seek out competing viewpoints than what you're consuming. Triangulate, triangulate, triangulate. And the last, but certainly the not least, is get out there and amplify the good information. Focus more on that than debunking the bad. Debunking the bad sometimes works, but sometimes it has what's called a backfire effect, meaning you actually keep it in the news cycle unintentionally longer than it should be. So really part of our entire platform here at Dear Pandemic is amplifying the good stuff. We are big cheerleaders for good information. That's what we spread. And also, I'm just going to grab this and own it. We also really are working hard to amplify female expert voices, because we think that their voices deserve amplification big time. So again, extraordinary claims, extraordinary measures. Be like Abraham Lincoln, assemble a team of rivals, triangulate your news sources, and last but not least, amplify the good.
Yes, thank you.
An example came to mind, that when we first started studying SARS-CoV-2, there was a study that came out looking in the lab setting how long it could last on surfaces, right?
Right.
We started from a point of zero knowledge about that, right? But a lot of the knowledge we first gain is in a lab setting, right? And then we have to wait to see how that translates to an applied setting in real people, right? And so, it takes time. There's steps to sort of learning about a new infection in different capacities before we understand completely how it acts in real life.
Yeah.
And I want to, speaking of amplification, I want to amplify Amanda's point. And the way that I talk about this often is that we are fighting on 3 fronts: bench, bedside, broader population. And often the science sort of follows the same path, right? You learn things at the bench, then you learn it often in clinical settings, and then you see how it flies in the real world, right, in observational studies. So we're fighting this on 3 fronts. The information often starts at the bench first, and it takes a while to disseminate, change, evolve as it moves through to the broader society.
Yeah.
Although I'd say, interestingly, with this outbreak and a lot of infectious disease outbreaks, we're also innovating and experimenting at the population level. I mean, all these public, we're at Philadelphia. We're actually experimenting with different approaches to contact tracing to see, like how do we get people to pick up the phone? What modality? Who should be calling? Should the number show in the phone? Is there a better time of day? And that's doing the science at the at the place where it's
at
being.
the population, yeah. And it is kind of all reinforcing too. I don't want to oversimplify and suggest that it's like lockstep. So thanks, Alison. That's an important prompt. They all reinforce each other.
So we've actually gotten a couple of questions about this idea of what's the latest on surface contamination and fomite transmission is what us nerds call it, is fomites. So Amanda, you want to give us an update on the latest?
Yeah, actually, like a reporter contacted me the other day. So now it's not a big deal on surfaces. Can you talk about this? And I said, can you send me a link to what you're talking about? And essentially it's not that it's irrelevant on surfaces, but our thinking about it has, been more, solidified, or now that we understand, like, yes, in the lab setting, it lasted on a cardboard for 24 hours or, whatever the duration was. And it's still considered like a mode of transmission, but what we're learning from studies that are using real life examples of outbreaks is that it really seems the droplet spread is the primary mode of transmission, right? And so these actions we can take around social distancing and wearing a mask are important, but we should still wash our hands and not touch our face in clean surfaces. But we shouldn't, but we're learning about whether it's necessary to wipe down all groceries, or, the things that when we only had the lab evidence, we weren't exactly sure what to do. And that changes over time, right?
Yeah, it's a great example of how things evolve and how things in the real world are different from the way they are in the lab setting.
Yeah.
What do they say? Mice lie and monkeys exaggerate, or is it the other way around?
No, I think it's mice lie and monkeys exaggerate.
And monkeys exaggerate, right?
Yeah.
Oh, in terms of animal studies?
Yeah, in terms of animal model studies, that we can't always extrapolate direct
From the lab.
to interpret that. We can't always extrapolate directly from what's happening in the lab study to what's happening in when something is out in the real world.